them. When you invade people, you antagonize them. You make enemies. You get people angry. And out of the anger of millions of people, a small number of them may become terrorists. So they've used 9/11. To me, that's the important truth about 9/11.
The last speaker mentioned the Patriot Act.
Yes.
In the past couple of weeks, the Bush administration has fired 10 or more top attorneys in the Justice Department, and under a secret provision of the Patriot Act has been replacing them without congressional approval and with basically no oversight. So my question about that is, you mentioned that we should bring people to justice through basically impeachment and such things. What happens though if when the legal system is no longer responsive or refuses to take action or is filled with figureheads that will not act? What can we do then if the actual institution does no longer can deliver that justice that is necessary and needed?
That's a really important question because it represents reality. That is, the reality is that the system of justice is no longer, if it ever was really, something you could turn to be sure that the justice system would protect you and protect your rights. This has only rarely been true in American history. The justice system has been like other parts of the government and generally beholden to powerful interests. And now, worse than ever, and now the Bush administration has taken total hold of the system of justice, and it's using all the federal court appointees on the district court level and the appeals court level. It has the Supreme Court in its hands, partly with the collaboration of the Democratic Party, which caves in instead of fighting the Republican nominees. And so, yes, what do you do when you can't depend on a system of justice to redress your grievances? That's where civil disobedience comes in. That's where popular action comes in. And that's where you go over the heads of the courts and you appeal to your elected representatives, since the people in the Justice Department are not elected, they're not beholden to anybody, they often have lifetime jobs. Your representatives at least have some commitment to represent their constituencies, and that's why the putting pressure on your representatives to be in holding impeachment hearings and to demand cutting off of funds for the war and bringing the troops back as fast as possible. I think that's a way of bypassing a recalcitrant and reactionary justice system.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the U.S. does seem to have used the fear of terrorism really well, and yet the hypocrisy of the current government around defending the terrorists who have been attacking Cuba by putting the Cuban Five in jail for having exposed what they were doing seems like a lesson that people really need to hear about in this country, and yet there's been such silence. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit. I know you wrote a wonderful chapter in a book, Superpower Principles, kind of on the background of U.S.-Cuba relations, but I'm realizing a lot of people don't know about these five guys locked up.
Yeah, that's one of those things that have happened that nobody ever hears about, and people are locked away. And they've been locked away for years. And they're five Cubans, right? You correct me if I'm wrong about any of these facts, because you obviously know. You see, usually the questioner knows more than the replier. And but my recollection, these are five Cubans who infiltrated the sort of the anti-Castro network in Miami because terrorist acts were being committed against Cuba. They have been, in fact, ever since Castro took power. It's not a secret that the United States tried to invade Cuba, that the United States tried to assassinate Castro, that the United States was engaged in secret terrorist activities against Cuba. And so these five Cubans tried to find out about that, and they were arrested, charged with terrorism, held, I think, for a long time without right to counsel, without the right to see their families. And they're still in prison, right, after years. And so there are these things that go on that so many of them that you never hear about, and the press, of course. You cannot really depend on a major media to report on these things. So we depend on people like you to get up before the microphone and to tell people about it.
I'll tell you what, I'll leave some postcards in the back table if people want to send just notices to their Congress people. There's information on them, and then they can sign them and send them off to Congress, because it's just so egregious. But thank you.
Greetings. My question, it's more like looking for your input. Looking at George Bush and the way he got into office, I see that a large part of that came from the backing of fundamentalist religious groups. And that their strong desire was to impose their religious beliefs on the legislative process so that they could change the laws of the country so that whatever their religious beliefs are, that would be what the laws of the country were. And I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on the whole role that fundamentalist religion had to do with putting Bush in power.
Well, we've never really had a separation of church and state in this country, no matter, they talk about it as a principle of American democracy. It's never been real. I mean, the presidents have always taken their oaths on the Bible. The God has always been invoked all the time. Any president who wanted to invade any country has said God told him to do that, because God studies the map and decides where we will invade. And then Bush goes, it's just that Bush has gone farther than anybody else in tying his administration to, in this case, fundamentalist, radical, fanatic Christianity. There's a different Christianity. There's a Christianity which is not fundamentalist. There's a Christianity which is not extremist and fanatic. There's a Christianity which is humanist. And, I mean, look at the Catholic anti-war people. Look at the churchmen who have supported social movements. So, Christianity can be used for good or for ill, and Bush has used it, and the fundamentalist churches have been so closely tied to him as to give him great support. And I think that fortunately they do not command the support of the majority of Christians in this country. Now maybe they have 20% or maybe 25%, but there's always been, well, I shouldn't say always, that's an extreme statement. I'm not an extremist. There has been for a long time a fundamental core of immovable right-wing sentiment in this country, which probably accounts for 25 or 30% of the population. And there's probably little you can do to move them. The problem is to move everybody else. And when you move enough other people who are not transfixed by this pseudo-religious idea that God is on the side of imperial power, you see, then it's possible for religion to play a positive role.
I have one comment and one question. I'm a combat veteran who was abused by his own people while serving in the military, and a lot of us who face similar things tried to go to our congressmen and senators, and they've refused to meet with us. We've also gone to the press, and they refuse to air what we have to say, which brings me to the question, do you have any advice on other ways to get things public? We've tried rallies, and that so far hasn't worked a lot either.
To get things published?
Public, meaning news,
publicized.
And make the congressmen meet with the veterans who've been abused.
Yeah, what happened during the Vietnam War, when congressmen refused to meet with people, the people who tried to meet with these congressmen sat in their offices. They went to see them and they wouldn't leave. I mean, that's an act of civil disobedience. And that brought attention. And that sometimes embarrassed the congressmen into finally meeting with them. But when the orthodox channels don't respond, then you have to go outside the orthodox channels. But the orthodox channels do not fulfill the requirements of democracy. So, there are things that can be done. They're hard. They take risks. They may be very be arrested and so on. But in times of crisis, That's what people do. People did that in the South during the movement there. People did that during the Vietnam War. During the 80s when Reagan was carrying on covert warfare in Nicaragua and Honduras and El Salvador, people committed civil disobedience. At one point, 500 of us sat in the JFK building here in Boston and wouldn't move when the building closed down. They arrested 500 of us. The charge was based on an old statute, and was abbreviated as, the old statute was like failure to quit the premises, you see, and it was abbreviated as failure to quit. And that's what we have to do. We have to fail to quit. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
A quick question and then a longer question or two. This is driving me nuts. I've been an admirer of you for over 30 years.
So you want to drive me nuts?
I'll try.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm older than many of the people here. 30 years ago when I was in school, we read a book by you. I can't remember the name of it, about Vietnam. I don't believe it's Vietnam Logic. It's another book. It had like it was a paperback. It had red in it. And I was trying to look for it today. It's driving me nuts that I can't remember the name of it. Because I hope I can find it.
Neither can I.
I know it was written by you, though.
You sure?
My second question is, if I understood you correctly, you were mentioning that government is sort of for the wealthy and the upper. On the other hand, I've heard, not that I'm disputing you, people like Ted Kennedy and maybe Michael Dukakis and others being ones that have been sort of there to help the underdog, the immigrant, somebody that don't have money, giving out free, free food stamps or free way to those people. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Agree with
the fact that Kennedy and some of those other people are sort of on the other end of what you were saying, where the government serves the rich rather than
I see.
And thirdly, who do you see as a good president for the next?
Thirdly, I only heard one. You're skipping one. Okay.
The book was the other one.
Oh, the book. Oh, I see. Okay.
Who do you would like to see be our next president?
Who would I like to see our next president?
And the comment about the Kennedy.
I'd just soon have a lottery and choose somebody from this audience, and I would gamble that anybody in this audience would probably do a better job than whoever is going to be selected by the Democratic Party. So I'm half serious, but to your question about, what about Kennedy and Dukakis and so on doing good things for the poor? Well, yeah, there are congressmen who are better than other congressmen. There are congressmen who are more liberal, and there are congressmen who have a better idea of what our tax structure should be and so on. And it's nice to have those congressmen. We should encourage them and support them. But they always need to be encouraged. They always need to be pushed. And they are a distinct minority in our system of representation. So as for who I would like to see president, unfortunately, it's very hard to find somebody who in the high reaches of the Democratic Party. When I look at the possible candidates, well, process of elimination, right? Hillary Clinton? No. No. Biden? No. Obama? Possibly. John Edwards? Possibly. But you're putting me in that position, you see, the position that we're always in at election time, where we don't find anybody who really represents our views. We try to find somebody who a little bit represents our views, you see. Ralph Nader would represent my views. And Ralph Nader, you see, but the political system won't give him a chance. You know, it's a sad thing. We talk about bringing democracy to other countries, say, oh, they're having an election. This means democracy. You see, we have elections all the time. Doesn't mean democracy. No.